And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. How is everyone doing? So, I'm Chris Knight. This is the Real Review 3000. And a couple quick announcements, really quick. First off, Sean isn't here with us tonight. His father has some health concerns, so he took the night off, and we wish his father the best. Second off, I'm sure most of you guys have heard about the news recently. Anna, that Star Wars girl, was looking for her sister. Her sister went missing for a time. And unfortunately, they announced, I believe it was yesterday, that her sister had passed on. So we here at the Real Review 3000, Sean Stackhouse reacts, and I'm sure you at Black Angus Reviews, we like to send out our heartfelt apologies. And if you look down in the description, you will see a link to the Celebration of Life GoFundMe page for Ellen. So please go visit that. I know they've reached their goal, but I know that you can still donate. So please go and donate and help her family out, Anna's family out, please. With that said, we decided to go ahead and go on today. It has been 24 hours. We do send our sympathy and our apologies to Anna, the Geeks and Gamers family, and the Fandom Menace, and all of us are with her. But we decided to go on with tonight's stream. And with me tonight for tonight's stream is Black Angus of Black Angus Reviews. So Black Angus, Mr. Angus, please introduce yourself and tell everybody about your channel.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I'm glad to come on. It's funny because I'm kind of not used to plugging my channel anymore, given the repetition. Me and like the Phantom Collective doing stuff, a lot of the KOTOR repetitiveness.
Mm-hmm.
But for anyone who doesn't know, my channel is definitely very much Phantom Menace, Star Wars based and whatnot. Concerned with the state of entertainment, but the intent was always to bridge the gap between a nerd fandom like Star Wars, Game of Thrones, intense investment with the same investment you get in sports fandom. I'm a big Philly fan. I don't really care about the other sports. I'll watch NBA, maybe baseball with the playoffs, but yeah, I'm just a football guy, pro. And instead of trying to divvy up that coverage when I do it, when I have time, I put it on the same channel. I don't care about the algorithm. If you're just the nerd for one part of entertainment, then it's just the special features disc is how I treat my bonus content. So yeah, my channel is Film Philosophy and NFL. I don't do a lot of film or a lot of philosophy or NFL just because I'm always focused usually on the entertainment aspect.
Yeah. Tonight's topic kind of can spill over into sports, and we might go into it. I mean, because not everything that plagues the entertainment world plagues the sports world, but some of it spills over from time to time, and it's kind of an interesting correlation. But our topic tonight is basically, the death of entertainment in today's world, and why is it like that, or and I mean, really, why do you think that is?
I was actually thinking about this when we kind of hammered out the idea of the stream. I thought about it a little bit more, and I, it's kind of weird. I don't know how long I'm gonna wait to create it because I gotta edit, and I haven't really edited on my computer in a while, so it's a little foreign again. But I have a video I'm working on, kind of correlating the lesson from Old Yeller to Star Wars. So it's going to be a lot of dog movie references visually and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But with the Ellen thing kind of leaving a bad shadow across fandom mind and stuff currently. I don't know when it'll be appropriate to like upload it, because I want traction for it, but I also don't want to seem morbid or people extrapolate like, oh, his last video was in regards to this, and then he's focused on death, whatever. But I thought about it. I thought about this topic and how to say it. It reminds me a bit of the state of entertainment. It reminds me a bit of Syndrome from The Incredibles, where he talks about when everyone's special and no one's special.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as I love Comicsgate and the kind of Renaissance entertainment it's open to me, not really reading comics too much at all. I didn't grow up with one at all when I lived in Oklahoma as a kid, given that nearest one was probably an hour plus away. So I had a very loose idea of what comics were, but yeah, not till I was an adult I really understood. And even then, it took a while to like understand continuity and numbers.
Mm-hmm.
But as great as Comicsgate is, it's a platform. It's young, and so you get people that have a name as an artist and therefore can throw around their clout. It's not. I'm not hinting at EVS. EVS sounds like he's a great writer thus far with Cyberfrog, and he's a smart guy. And you see his writing talent, his content. But there's other people with some clout who had it just because they're first or because they're a great artist, so they kind of get away with it. And I think that's kind of the state of entertainment as a whole, is that we're saturated with so many creators, and everyone's trying to top each other. But think about 1,000 years ago when people were starting to invest more in the arts and stuff. It was before the Black Plague was really taking hold, but it was here and there, and it was dire times. But entertainment was slowly building and stuff from the hierarchies of West Europe. How many people, when they heard like Dante's Inferno or Beowulf's, like, oh man, we need the sequel, or man, I need this genre or something. Like, I'm sure people wanted stories in those veins, but I don't think there was like this insatiable hunger. Like, people seem to be satisfied with carrying these stories for hundreds of years before something new really strikes its own.
Not to interrupt you, but on that fact, do you think that that's more of the fact that the written media of the time, books, even stories that were passed on from person to person, because a lot of things were just word of mouth. In fact, back in the Dark Ages, you had scribes that could only recopy a book only so many times in a year, and that a lot of those stories would be people who could read that would then tell the story to somebody else, and the story would continue. And while it would change some here and there, I think that the written stories that these great writers wrote, they had to have a lot of depth to them. The characters had to have depth. The characters had to come alive off of a page. You didn't have movies. You didn't have TV to just bring a character to life. That had to come to life from the words. Do you think that that's somewhat why those books didn't need, as you said, a sequel? People read that book and it was just that good. The content was that good that they were satisfied through and through with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think about, of course people didn't have like you're kind of limited unless you could see someone's art. You're kind of limited to your vision of like what a Cerberus looked like, or a Hydra or whatever. But since the Greeks, there's at least the Greeks, there's costume plays with some effects, if you will, some crazy costuming and stuff. for unearthly things. But overall, it's like people didn't have that scope of vision, so it was really stuck in their head. And so film kind of breaks the mold in that way. What you can do. Same with like comics. Yeah, I just think it's. I think people cherished it more because you look at detailing on the sides of, classic like Roman or Sumerian, whatever, buildings. They paid artists to like carve different scenes and tales of their people in these things. And it wasn't like, hey, yeah, just look in the phone book. There's like 50 artists. It was like, yeah, how long did you have to study and how many people actually could afford to not, farm whatever to do this craft. It's very exclusive, I would say, and long-term investment. And so, yeah,
Absolutely.
I think that's part of it. There's probably some X factor I haven't tapped into, I haven't realized. But yeah, I just really think it's. I think the ease, the access, and the fact that you have a comic skate, you have YouTube, you have stuff where it's changed the platform from where before it's like, oh wow, if you could just ever meet a star or a great crafter, now it's like anyone could get lucky with a break, and make the next Avatar potentially if they just had enough time or money thrown at them to sit on a computer all day. So yeah, it's kind of devalued. I think craftsmanship has been devalued, regardless of how good or bad. It's oversaturated, and it's kind of like the spoils of society, and it gets weird. I'm not gonna make it like political, but Camille Paglia, she's an interesting feminist who you could say is red pilled. She triggers a lot of third wave feminists. And she talks about like societal decay through art, and you can like see it where it's like before the Greeks, they used to really push and idealize like the masculine, burly, like brawny man figure, and then like towards the end they start effeminizing men and getting away from very outright masculine characteristics or outright female characteristics, and it starts blurring, and that's like a little shade that kind of reflects, I think. It's really when you start losing identity. And I really think, like comics, for instance, there's this whole argument of respecting characters, and if you want to do something drastically new, just make a new one, don't ride the coattails. And I'm all for pushing boundaries and seeing how you can bend a character, so I'm not like so like entrenched without any room to wiggle. But I don't know. I think entertainment's reflecting like the overall problem of a very self-indulged society where it's like, well, what's our identity? And it's a sign of decay. So I don't know. Maybe at some point we'll see a renaissance of like Latin or like modern Chinese or Japanese art or something. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I'm always hopeful. I remember, going to the movies as a child, and I look at the difference back then and what it is now. You used to be able to go and take $5, and $5 would be enough for almost 2 movies and popcorn and drinks and things like that. But it looks like everything's just about money now. It doesn't matter what the content that they're putting on the screen is. They go out there and they push certain ideologies out there. They push agendas using film without really looking at the art form. I think it's the art form, and I think that's kind of in a way what you're saying. The art form of making a movie has been lost because, like you said, just because just because you have money and you have the time to sit down and do it doesn't mean you should do the movie, because that's what a lot of movies are right now. It's just money thrown at a project, and then they'll just keep going with it even if it doesn't deserve to be made. And you hear about it all the time. And again, you made a good point that sequels. Why do you have to make a sequel to everything that comes out now? It is nothing. Just go ahead and make one good movie and be done with it, and say that's it. That's what you get. Don't leave it open at the end. Um, I think it is a society problem. People, we live in a short attention span world. Like you said, YouTube. Everybody watches YouTube, and I want people to watch YouTube. I want people to watch my channel, of course. But I mean, I call it like the rabbit hole, and I think a lot of us have sat down in the middle of the night, bored out of our minds. We go on YouTube and we might look up something about, say, Star Wars or something. And the next thing you know, 3 hours later, you have 40 tabs open because you're watching 40 different videos that each one spawned off of each other. And now you're stuck in this little rabbit hole, because that's kind of what YouTube does now. It sucks you in, and you lose time. And that's basically all it is. It's just something that people waste time, and especially children waste time. Um, when I was a child, I didn't have YouTube. We had, like, if you had just basic TV, you had like 15 channels maybe. And if you said anything about being bored to your mother, she told you to go outside.
Yeah.
And we're not there anymore. You tell your kid to go outside and they're like, but it's hot. Yeah. My dad didn't turn the AC on until it was like 98 degrees outside. Of course it was. I remember growing up and we had like 30 fans across the house with all the windows open because we were trying to create a breeze. And then when my dad finally would break down to turn on the AC, then that's when we had the AC on. But no, society definitely has numbed people to almost robotically accept what's out there. For whatever reason. I mean, do you think that that's kind of what it is? It's like society has become programmed to just accept what's thrown at them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm not from the East, so I can't really comment on what their woes are. I've been to Afghanistan, but I was in a very country, like rural, isolated, uneducated area,
Mm-hmm.
and so I didn't see enough to like kind of get of like, this is who they are. This is their ills from society. Like, it's, if anything, I kind of envy their simplicity and their it's fun to be Western and how to say it, like have the luxuries we do. Like, oh, I got, oh man, I'm not getting to use on my YouTube channel or whatever. Or damn it, that guy beat me to this hot topic, or how do I one up someone to stand out? Or, oh god, my entertainment. They're worried about my crops, my house not falling apart, my kid not stepping on a bomb. Real stuff. So I kind of envy them.
Well, yeah. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was, but not to demonize capitalism from like an SJW standpoint, but example I've always kind of realized as a kid is however much excess ketchup packets I would get, instead of putting them back to not waste them, I realized, like, wait a minute, if I don't waste them, if I only use what I need, if everyone actually just used what they needed, then like the system would fall apart. You need the excess to keep it going. It's like, well, we got to keep replenishing it because they use so much, And you kind of realize that, and that's kind of the core of like a capitalist market, I think.
Oh.
It doesn't mean that the stuff can't be quality, but I think there's just naturally an intent to have excess or have an excess craving. So that's kind of simplistic drive, I think, across it. Being in that system, it reflects on so many things that you don't think about. It's kind of what I'm getting at. And I'm not aware of what it's like in the East for how they're more collectivists, but I'm sure if you're entrenched, you might start noticing, like, well, this is what, our market drives our societal thinking. So I think it's something to do with that.
I think the market drives a lot of societies. I've always been of the mind that if our market were to crash in general, China, Japan, a lot of the other countries, their market crashes because it's relying on ours. Whether or not we borrow money from somebody, they borrow money from us. It's all, entwined within each other. But when you talk about what you were talking about there, is that when you go overseas, you go to some of these countries, third world countries, not third world countries, whatever, and you get a very different sense of it. You go outside of Hong Kong, maybe an hour, and you start getting into the farmlands. Those people don't have technology. They don't have a TV. They don't have any of that stuff because they just haven't. They've never lived with it. They farm their land. That's what they live for. Their land, their family, and they're fine with it. Even though China in general is a very technological country, you go to the outlying reaches and to the farmlands of China, they don't need that stuff. It doesn't interest them as much as it does like here. And you notice that when you go to the farms in America, farmers still do have pride in the land, but they still have that that connection to technology or something that a lot of Eastern societies don't find necessary. Um, it's really weird if you think about it that we live in a country that is so me centered, so technologically driven, so excess oriented, yet we also have the Amish in our country that is the complete opposite. And that's literally the two far sides of the spectrum, but the Amish have survived here and kept away from that stuff for all this time because they don't covet it. They've never coveted it. And that's probably one of the things is that when you start getting those things, you start coveting it. And then I guess it's kind of like a drug. Somebody, hands it to you and you take it and then you get hooked and then they say, oh, I know I got you now. Entertainment in general, be it music, be it movies, TV, relies on hooking people. And I'm not sure if I think that's kind of it's not a new concept to Hollywood or to the music industry, but I think it's more important to them now. And they use it to divide people too. I always look at it for political aspects. I think that right now, Hollywood in general, and whether or not you want to believe the SJW movement is a real thing, or if it's just a bunch of people who don't know better that are just arguing to argue, I think entertainment, specifically movie studios and stuff, see a way to divide people, which is a way to, in a way, manipulate the political climate, which helps them manipulate the masses in the United States. And I don't think it really matters if you're a conservative or a liberal. I think I've always thought that on both sides of it, that they are using these things in general to separate us because it makes us more controllable as a mass. Do you think entertainment is used as a control mechanism for the masses?
Yeah, one of my, I give the topic, it's like, well, it's already kind of done, so I don't know who would be interested unless they're like hearing this. Maybe that piques their interest. But when I started my channel, I did a video regarding the solo soy cot, and I kind of walked through the history of film and before with like ideas and stuff. And I'm kind of trying to display like you realize like unless you get the perfect conditions for like Christianity, I'm an atheist, but I still appreciate Christendom, and I think religion has a place. And I think entertainment is kind of becoming a new secular religion. And that's why we're having this kind of holy war left and right. about essentially heresy or doctrine. But Crystal, you see an example of right place, right time. Yes, it was persecuted to some degree, for sure, by where it developed from with the Jews, and of course Rome, because of their kind of push and whatnot. Why is definitely arguable, but it benefited from being in a well connected, very few, if not just one or two language empire with a great infrastructure like road systems and stuff, so it can spread faster and further. And then that got institutionalized, and so then new stuff, once it started breaking apart with the Dark Ages, it remained very hard to develop anything new or question or progress until the Renaissance and the printing press. So film was the next great invention, I would say. Yeah, you got like what is it, Morse code, stuff like that, the telephone, but film's really where it's at. And so I'm kind of going through that, and the main thing I'm pointing out is Russian montage and propaganda. Russians, right after the Communist Revolution, made the first film school. That's where real editing to tell stories into like subtext and stuff. That's where that came from. That's where people perfected it, was communist Russia. Now, you could see it as, well, it just happens that people who were communists figured it out, or you can view it as the communists used it as a method to better influence people. And I think it's very clear if you watch if you watch the Hallmark film Battleship Potemkin, it's a collectivist film. There's no real star to the film. There's no real character that you're just like, yes, that character, that's the movie. It's a whole plethora, and it's reflecting, like the communist cause, and it's very convincing, if I'm honest. And it's even more elaborating when you realize that like Goebbels and the Nazis, they built everything with their propaganda off of Russian film school. They're like, hey, Germans, learn from the Russians. And they progressed even further beyond just going to collectivism to the Third Reich ideas of exterminate the Jews and everyone that's not to our suiting, not to our high class that we think of, like the German Aryan race or whatever. And that's a lot to do with film and stuff. So I really think today, like I said, there's like this holy war now. And I guess to tie it in with something you hinted at earlier that I wanted to reflect on is, there's not just an excess is what's killing film and entertainment. It's the like vague lines, the gray lines. I love Thanos' betrayal in Infinity War and Endgame. Both timelines in Endgame for Thanos. He's very gravitating to me. I love stuff like Saw, where you got this clear villain, but a messiah character that's warped, and you can kind of reflect him to Batman, where he's like, no one else can help the world like I can. That's very interesting. But when you start introducing children to that, and you blur the lines of really what in America is a kind of Christ-like heroism, or for the East, if you get rid of the like clear lines that make a collectivist hero, and it's like like Black Panther, I think's another great example, because it's like it seems more people actually gravitate towards Killmonger than the hero T'Challa. And when that's like your introduction to a character, and you're like, the villain's better than the hero, I think it just kind of reflects we don't know where we're going. We don't know who we're trying to emulate or who our standard is. As much as I love Man of Steel, I love the very real, I think, applications of like introspection into the character and deconstructing them. That's not a hero for kids. the betrayal's very vague and muddied solely compared to like a Christopher Reeves, who I'm not a fan of, but I can appreciate and definitely see why people gravitate towards it. So I think
I think you get into these new movies, especially like you said, comic book movies, for instance, and I'll use that in reference. I know that they don't always follow the comic books directly, but they are based off of comic book characters. Like in Man of Steel, they've gone much grittier now. There's a darker theme behind it, and some of these things, and even sometimes, like you said, Thanos. Thanos is a very interesting character. He is the bad guy. It's very clear, but it's also the point of you can almost see it's like, who is the bad guy? Is the bad guy the guy that just doesn't have enough people behind him just because not enough people believe what he believes? Because inherently, Thanos is truthfully looking at life and saying, I can better the situation. But the problem is that requires an unwanted outcome, even if it does better the situation. And I think it's a perspective that is, and you bring up kids, it's a perspective hard for kids to understand, and yet they put it in these movies and they gear them towards people who may not understand what's really being dealt with here. There's you said Messiah. That's a very good way of looking at it.
Yeah, I think superheroes. I think the modern superhero, like we understand from like Superman on to what's become current the go-to for studios to try to like get IPs to make these movies. They're all rooted in a maybe not messiahs per se, but Christ-like individualism that's very much intertwined with American values and Western values. Compared to like, I'm not sure what a hero of the East would look like besides maybe like a Pope Francis, people's Pope figure, or like Shea, despite clearly bad politics. He rallied a lot of people behind him. So Gandhi, something like that. There's kind of a difference, of East and West, but both have like good core values, and they're very, very specific, and you can see them kind of based off of a core in religion or something. These characters, not characters, like deities. And so it's cool to have like more realistic, more blurred lines and stuff, but when that's what kids are getting, like I'll show my son Thanos and stuff, but he likes Iron Man just because it looks cool and stuff. But I think he kind of gets who the good guys are, who the bad guys are. But I don't know. It's hard to meddle out, but I think you kind of get where I'm going.
Yeah, well, Eastern culture is always there. I wouldn't even call them heroes. Very few Eastern people who are looked up to, be it Gandhi, be it Buddha. They were selfless characters, and they didn't want you to worship them. They just wanted to be an example. They wanted to say, this is what you should do. If you believe in something, like Gandhi, for instance, who, basically starved himself to death, he did it for a reason, but he didn't want people to worship him. He just wanted to say, I have a belief, and this is what I'm going to do about it. Buddha was much the same way. Buddha, a lot of people think Buddha is a deity, and in some senses of Buddhism, it is, but it's more of a journey to find oneself. The deity is the central core of a person, or the oneness you can become with yourself. It is an idea. And that's what and I can't remember what Buddha's real name was, but the journey, the whole idea of Buddhism is basically the journey to find your inner self. And the inner self of that person who started that trend, his inner self was Buddha. And it's a symbol of one's inner self. Eastern religions and mythos are much different than Americans. I don't know. Today's heroes, today's people we look up to, are sometimes more flawed than the average person because they've stepped on people to get where they're at. They make brash and fast decisions to move forward. But in America, in Western cultures, we find that sexy, we find that appealing, and we think, hey, look, if I can do that, I can be like that person and be a bigger influence on the world. People will recognize me for being, this person. In Eastern culture, it is do what's right, find your place in society, and that's what you should do. And once you do that, your life, the people around you's life, it will be better because you are doing what the universe expects of you. That I think that's the big difference between the East and the West. And you see that a lot in internet. Again, I go back to excess and the blurring of the lines almost of a villain and a hero. You can't, your kids and my kids can tell you who the villain and the hero is, but you can definitely see how they're trying to blur the lines. They're trying to give you some sympathy to some of these villains because you're like, well, I can understand what they're saying. Now, before when we were talking about coming up with this topic, you said that as far as entertainment's concerned, you're turning to things that were more of the older movies and older entertainment. And exactly what would you say you're interested in right now as far as entertainment's concerned?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not necessarily an actor entertainment person. Like there's certain people where it's like, oh, that person, like Jake Gyllenhaal, minus him joining the MCU, and maybe his performance in Spider-Man will be stellar, just like all of his indie work lately. But when it gets into blockbuster shit, then I kind of just turn my brain off, like whatever. They're just getting a paycheck. But I saw No Country for Old Men. I saw it before it came out, and I thought it sucked, as a kid. But I saw it a couple years ago, and wow, it just blew me up. It's one of my favorite movies. It says so much about my perspective of life. I actually met a I don't know what you call it, a registered minister, for lack of a better term, in Dudism, which is based off of essentially a philosophy based off of Big Lebowski.
Yeah,
it's an organized faith technically.
Oh yes,
and, yeah. Seeing No Country for Old Men, I felt because I kind of buy into a lot of nihilist ideas, I guess. I felt that movie could inspire the same type of philosophical type of religion, loose term, if you will, like voidism or something. So stuff like that, where I see that and it's like, what else has Tommy Lee Jones did? So I'll like watch U.S. Marshals, The Fugitive. He did this, I think his own directed kind of modern Western film, kind of totally fills in the vein of No Country, but it's a different story. So you got something like that where I'll try to go through someone's catalog, or I'll try to find stuff that feels the same. Like I just saw The Rock from the Criterion Collection, and I was like, holy shit, like Nick Cage is known for like crazy acting, and Michael Bay's just a spectacle director that is all about excess. But wow, The Rock is not just like, oh, it's perfect 90s cheese, but it's like cheese with like a good plot, good storytelling, great awareness of little details. Probably the best awareness of plot, stuff like that, those little finite details since Die Hard, in my opinion. I just recently saw Die Hard for the first time, and I was like, was like, man, they're thinking of everything. Like they shoot the glass, and it's like, well, he doesn't have shoes, and he cuts his feet up, and I'm like,
Mhm.
oh my god, like they think of the liabilities. The Rock's the same way, spatially
Yep.
when they came out, I'm like, yes, the Rock's probably like the next best thing as far as that type of awareness in its writing.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and just like with comics, when I first started watching the Bullshitters, some of their videos when I was going through their catalog, they talked about comics, and I was kind of like, I don't know what the hell they're talking about. I don't care. But then I start reading stuff, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm starting to see it. So pretty much, especially when it comes to Marvel, if it's 2014 and after, I just won't waste my time unless a channel I trust, like War Campaign or something, says something. So yeah, I'm finding older stuff like Black Sad from like '03 or so. It's like a cat detective comic. It's kind of cool, noir. I'm gonna read Christopher Priest's Black Panther because there's the boycott by EVS for Vampirella for Christopher Priest. It's just there's a huge world there. Like people think they need to just jump on everything that comes out every week.
Mhm.
Um, and it kind of turns into this joke. I can't remember his name. This really funny white guy, stand-up comic. He talked about how it's like, wait, have you seen Breaking Bad? Have you seen Game of Thrones? And there's kind of like this apologetic, like I'm late on my rent. I'm going to get to it.
Mhm.
And if you're in this game, then like, yeah, you need to see shit. But overall, it's like see it when you want, or you don't have to. You're not really obligated. And so yeah, it's very liberating just going back and finding stuff that people love, like Die Hard, and actually seeing it for the first time and feeling the same way or whatever. But it's fresh to you.
Yeah, I remember when that came out, and I remember watching it. And I was floored. I loved that movie. I still look back at it, and you know, the acting in it was great. I mean, it's everything you believe about, um, everything you need from a great bad guy to a great hero who's obviously flawed and obviously doesn't do everything right. But like you said, the little details in those movies were just excellent. You know, so um, now, do you think that this carries over into sports at all? Do you think that that sports entertainment in general across the board is starting to die off or is getting plagued by these same problems?
Um, when it's in like off season for NFL, I don't like. Cause I I won't get into like the controversy like argument, but I boycott college sports given my perspective, especially as an adult and as a father. There's certain things I just totally disagree with the format and the lack of payment of players, and so I have a clean conscience regardless of whatever little crap you want to say about pro players. It's like, well, it's a perfect capitalist system. They get cut if they don't perform. So I don't feel I'm like uh, keeping a bad system going, even if there's like certain flaws or people take advantage, maybe. Um, with that said, I don't keep up with like the college draft because everyone could just be a bust. And I prove it on the field. Come the season, that's how I kind of view it. Same with free agents. Like, yeah, it's cool if you know that player, but they could. I saw the dream team for Philly, and that went nowhere. We went 8-8, so I don't fall for it anymore. It's just part of the show to hype you up. That's fine. But I'm starting to see stuff, like you had the Black Lives Matters. There's legitimate discussion being offered and being had thanks to Kaepernick, but Kaepernick was a hack, in my opinion. His political activism, it's not new to sports at all, but he never offered any of that until his career went down the toilet. And then it was like, oh, how do I, brand my name? So he did that. And other people bought into it who, like, I'm a Philly fan. Malcolm Jenkins was a key part of the Super Bowl we won, and he risked his reputation as a starter doing that. Um, as opposed to Kaepernick, where it's like, what's he really risking? So you see some of that with activism, and then
Now,
Draymond Green is a new one where he's part of this push to get rid of the term owner in the league, and yet he's an owner on his Twitter account of something, and it's like the double standard. I know ESPN was going down the crapper, may still be, but I don't know. It's mainly I just watch the highlights and stuff, but I am aware of these things popping up and these arguments seeping in. I'm being a vet and whatnot. I'm not one of those staunch anti Kaepernick argument type of people. I just think he's a hack, but I think the argument should be had. I don't think if you're fine with the flag being waved by soldiers on the field, with the symbol of the league being the American flag, with jets wasting tax dollars on fuel flying over stadiums. That's a political statement. So if you're against a political statement during the game from players, be against it from the league making deals with the government, for representation of political gestures.
Yeah, with Kaepernick, I think the issue that I personally had wasn't the fact of the protests that he had. And it was exactly what you said. His career was starting to fail. He was starting to go downhill. And when he was terminated from his contract, he used his protest as a look. That's why they did it. And then from then on out, everything I've heard is that people have offered him jobs and he's turned them down for one reason or another. I don't know if this is true, but I heard that Elway had even invited him to contract to come and try out for the team a couple of years ago or something like that in Denver, and he turned it down. But then he goes out and says, "Well, the league is stoned. They're blacklisting me. They're making it so I can't get in." Yet these stories pop up that other teams are saying, oh, we offered to have them come in. We didn't offer them a job per se, but we said you can try out for a job. And he used his protesting as a way of saying that's why. And so I think it was more of a convenient thing to have there to use as the scapegoat of just saying, listen, you obviously had your moment and then people figured you out, which happens all the time in sports. It's not a new thing. You got this young guy that comes up and, he's awesome. I mean, I'm a Kansas City Chiefs fan. We have Patrick Mahomes Jr. and the guy's had crazy numbers this past year. But would I be totally surprised if this next year comes around and people have figured something out about him? No, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't want to see that, but it is always a possibility. So I found it kind of being used more as a scapegoat. So it took away from what he said he was doing it for. I stopped believing that he was really doing it for a reason when he started using it to try to help his point.
Yeah, when to build off that, the other thing when I'd have these discussions once in a while with people who are pro Kaepernick, I would do my part to enlighten them. It's like, oh yeah, he cares about brown people so much and stuff and all the inequities, and then he takes however many, we don't know the number, but however many $1 million deal from Nike, not being a player in the league for 2 years at the time, and you see repeatedly Nike will they make this very diversity is our strength commercial with Kaepernick as like the lead guy. I think even like a Islamic person, like a female headscarf wearing Islamic sports player, and everyone else. And yet Nike, when the working conditions are so shitty, like the Vietnamese people in whatever town they're in will organize, like, hey, let's unionize or something to get better working conditions where we're not in a sweatshop. They shut the shop down and they moved down the block They just literally shut down, move literally down one block, and start over, and put them on the street and hire new people that are desperate for work. It's the epitome of the evil capitalist system, taking advantage of poor, Southeast Asian workers and their lack of worker laws and stuff, protections. So it's just very disingenuous to even take money from a company like that and say, like, we're here for brown people or something.
Well, I think that is funny, and I think that's a very American thing right now. Is you got these people saying, "Oh, there's injustice in America. There's this, and there's that," and then they go and they buy, like you said, they buy products that, if they looked into it, these products are more unjust than most of the stuff that goes around in the United States. I mean, the United States is not perfect, but I think people get duped into thinking that it's better someplace else, and I've traveled, you've traveled. There have been places I've gone that it's not a place I'd want to be. Um, you know, I don't know. America has a lot of different problems going on right now, but even with that said, that we still have some say in what goes on. It's just there's a lot of blind people out there being led because they can be led. They're told to go do it. They're told to go buy it. Told to go watch it. They're told to consume it, and they do it just because, well, they told me to do it. Do you think there's a lot of that? Do you think that's a problem right now? Do you think that's part of the problem with entertainment? Is that because these companies that are involved in our entertainment and our world, they tell people to go do it, and there's enough people who follow blindly? Do you think that's a problem?
Yeah, no, you're definitely on something. I don't think I have the best answer, but you definitely see it with, like, you gotta see this, you gotta see that, you gotta think this, and I don't know, like,
Well, you said it earlier. When you were talking about Die Hard and No Country for Old Men, you're like, there are things that come out today that people are like, I have to go see this, I have to go see that, I have to do this, I have to do that. Um, for instance, I'm going to go see it. I got free tickets. I'm going to go see it. I'm going to go see Spider-Man. But if I didn't have the free ticket, I wouldn't feel like I had to go. There's plenty of movies that go by that I hear people, oh, I got to go see that, and I'm like, I don't have to go. Here on this channel we do reactions, we do movie reviews, but we do try to decide what's worth it. If I don't think it's going to be a decent, thing to talk about, like for instance, X-Men, I don't have anyone to go see X-Men, but enough people went to go see it. But I think that sometimes people just go to do it.
yeah, I definitely see that. It's like there's just, like with Dark Phoenix. I didn't like grow up like X-Men came out when I was a kid, right around the Spider-Man craze was throwing me, but it wasn't like as huge as Spider-Man, clearly. But I've come to appreciate them, especially with Marvel. A lot of complaints of the villains and stuff, and kind of cookie cutter formula for some of their movies. I've definitely come to appreciate X-Men as saying something. The original trilogy, of course, is like an obvious gay rights allegory, in my opinion, given that it was about 7 to 10 years when it concluded before the Marriage Equality Act and ruling and stuff. And the rest of the films, they reflect that whole, like, the othering, the otherness that superheroes always kind of have to some degree, but the X-Men, that's like the whole point, is like, oh, well, here's a white guy who's successful, he looks handsome, but, he's Magneto, or he's Charles Xavier. He has this power that, like, no one can relate to, or Phoenix or whatever. But yeah, see, I don't know. I definitely am wary of being the Phantom Menace, we're supposed to be all about discourse and stuff, but I see a lot of channels being the collective. We're here to push new channels and stuff, but I definitely see way too many people covering the same stuff, not having any interesting angles aside from just covering that thing. They're not adding anything new to the conversation. So I see it on our side as well, in our ranks, where it's like you don't have to cover something just because people are talking about it. Like, there's clearly nothing passionate per se besides trying to grow, I guess. Which is fine.
Well,
but I don't know. I see that kind of what you're saying of like do this. I see it within our own ranks as creators on YouTube, being informative, where it's like how many people are just saying the same topics without any new ideas, or are covering the same movies without actually digging deep into the subtext or what it means, what it's trying to reflect on life or a thought or something. How many people are trying to make think piece stuff, just a video essay about a topic that's not, oh man, this was an article today. And I don't know, I miss that.
Well, go ahead.
Oh, that was it.
Well, I try whenever Sean and I are talking about things, and sometimes I come up with the topic, sometimes he does. If you see me on here talking about it myself, doesn't mean that I came up with it myself. Sometimes it's something we're talking about, and he says, "You know what? Get the camera, let's get it going, let's do it now." Sometimes I get moved. When I get moved to do something, I feel like that's what I should go on camera about, because I have passion about it. If I feel like something is just or it doesn't strike me, then I normally won't do it. Sometimes I feel like I have to. Sometimes I feel like enough people have said something, I'm like, well, let me check this out. And then I'll do a reaction or do something like that. But if it really moves me, and if it really gets me going in one way or another, irks me enough that I feel like, okay, I have to say my piece on this. Those are always my best pieces, I think. If I'm just doing it to do it, I feel like that comes across. I may do a reaction, and then I look back at it. I cut it, I edit it, I go through, I render it, and then I put it up. But when I watch it, I'm like, you can kind of tell I'm not hugely into this. I did the Batwoman trailer reaction, and at the end of it, I said I just don't have any interest in the CW. I don't. I've always hated, for the most part, superheroes translation to TV. I don't think it does it proper justice. I don't think that they have writers that can carry it, and they string these characters out through seasons and seasons. Give me a 2-hour movie and I'm okay. I'm good.
Yes. You say that. It's funny because besides Daredevil, I don't really like superhero shows. Even Punisher, even season 1 of Punisher, I'm like, it's kind of overdone. Even though him and Batman are so similar, for some reason it works with Batman and the drive of Punisher. I'm like, dude, just get over it. There's just something I don't buy about it. And I like Punisher as a character. No, I agree with you.
So I won't say that I don't do stuff that I'm not into. Sometimes I do, because you got to have content. So sometimes you go with something that says, okay, I can do this real quick and I can get some content out there. But I really think introspectively, if I looked at myself, I want to say, when it makes me mad or irked, or like, I don't know, we did a live stream for Shaft. I went to go see Shaft. I don't know. Did you happen to go see Shaft by any chance?
No. When I saw the trailer like last year, the first one, something about like, I can't remember how the sequence goes, but there's like I think young Shaft or whatever, he's like holding up one with a gun or something, or he's like, oh, go beat her up, and it's like whatever, then she hits him, so he pulls a gun. Some weird interaction. I'm like, this is going to blow up in their face, either as like toxic masculinity or gun violence,
Well,
or something with the black community and men. Or I
I'm
knew it
sure
was not going to go well.
I'm sure that's possible, but I love the movie because they disregarded that stuff. And in today's world, in today's entertainment, I'm afraid that too many people feel like they're stepping on people's toes if they do that stuff. I thought it was a ballsy move. Could it blow up in their face? It could. But Netflix stepped in and bought half of that to put on Netflix immediately. So that's a ballsy move on Netflix's part, if you think about it. But um, I enjoyed the movie. It was, to me, it was just a laugh track from the beginning to end. I loved it. I laughed. I had a great time with it. It was a good action film, buddy film, whatever you want to call it. It was a mix of several of those, and it was kind of comedic. But I felt obliged that we did a live stream on it, and that was because I had interest in it. And so those, I think, are always my best things. I think I do. I think that this segment, for instance, is a good segment because it creates the ability to put ideas out there, and whether or not they're ideas that everybody agrees with, that's not the point of this show. The point is that ideas are different from person to person, and those ideas are okay because as far as the Phantom Menace is concerned, the varying ideas help this community be strong. And if we were all robots and all thought exactly the same, then we'd be no different than the people we ask all these questions about. Why are you guys doing this? Why are you guys arguing? Why are you guys calling me names because I don't like this or I do like that? If we were like them, then we wouldn't be what we are, which is the Phantom Menace. We are different among each other, but that makes us strong as a whole, I think.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, with the superhero thing, I like what you said about like I just want like a 2 hour movie, blah blah. Like, even if it's like a trilogy or a series of movies, like give me some finality each entry. And yep, I feel that way about comics. Like I'm trying to collect all of Spawn. I haven't read most of it, but I've just always loved Spawn as a kid, and being an adult, I want to just sit through and actually just burn through the whole like 300 issue story now.
Mm-hmm.
So I like the character what I know so far. But in general, yeah, I don't like series, and I think that's why Comics Gate's great. And most of the comics I've read that I'm like, that was cool, are Elseworld stories of characters, either like what ifs about X, or just let's just sit them alone in this world and go with it for a mini series. There's an issue count, but when you got like Action Comics 1000, it's like, how the fuck am I supposed to like read all that? And there's so many iterations, even though it's a continuity per se, and
Mm-hmm.
it's oversaturated. It's relying on pumping out stuff regardless of if it has quality, and that's yeah, that's why I like movies over shows. That's why Daredevil really surprised me, because I'm like, oh, Netflix has a superhero, like that's just gonna be like Green Arrow or something. Like, who cares? Blew me away. Even season 3 with its Trump derangement kind of allegory, it was still good enough where I'm like, yeah, I'm fine with it.
I think.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
Oh yeah, and I was just gonna say, no, I'm always worried for myself. Like, when my criticism of our own ranks, the Phantom Menace, it's like I'm always just wary of, like, I try to be an example of like, like, I don't have a set day I put content up, and it's because it's like, I might pump out 5 things in a week along with live streams about stuff. I'm like, yes, this is stuff I'm passionate about. Even if it's topical, I think I have something that people aren't saying, or haven't thought this way, or haven't focused on it, haven't heard bigger people say X, and maybe I can offer that and people can reflect on it. But then I might go a week or more without putting something up, and I don't know, I just wish people had like, I feel, I go through my sub list, so many people I've found, and there's a lot of good content, but then there's a lot of like, yeah, there's like 10 people commenting on the same thing and it's just that. And I feel it's like they think they have to copy Jeremy or they have to copy Drox or something instead of just make your own pace, be yourself, have your own voice. There's this one guy I want to shout out. He's fledgling channel and he just
Mhm.
keeps doing what he wants to. Oscar nominated a-hole. He's been doing like SpongeBob video essays on different episodes, and I love it because it's like there's not necessarily like deep stuff every episode of SpongeBob, but just him enjoying it and piecing it out. It just this is what we need. We need just some passion stuff that's not topical. It's not oversaturating the market.
I think that it's important because you're using that word oversaturation, and that is exactly what it is. And if we allow that oversaturation to take us over, then we feel like we have to do something, or that we have to follow a topic, and we have to tear it down to its core. And like you said, sometimes it's good just to do something silly or something that isn't quite so topical. I mean, I used to sit around and watch SpongeBob with my kids all day long, and I absolutely love that show. And yet it's so stupid sometimes. I quote it still sometimes, like Patrick occasionally would say, well, if I did my normal brand of stupidity today, then you'd be expecting it. Things like that. I love that line. SpongeBob's a great. I guess it's a great teacher that don't take yourself so seriously. Don't take life so serious. Just enjoy it. And a lot of that comes back to this: is that if we enjoyed life and kind of took things less serious, perhaps things would be a little better. And so.
Yeah. Dang, I feel like there's something on the tip of my tongue that's not coming out yet. I'm just like, ugh. It's gonna bother. I'm gonna like mess you like, oh, it was this thing, Chris.
Well, it happens. No, I mean, I'd say that's a pretty good way of probably wrapping this up with just talking about that oversaturation and look for what's not what everybody else is doing.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There's one thing I wanted to offer you as a question, and same thing for you. You and see, we're on Real Reviews 3000, correct?
Yes.
All right. Just I saw the background. I'm just making sure. Because I know you and Sean team up, but is it technically like your channel or is it your true team up channel?
Okay, so the story goes like this. About 2 years ago, I created this channel for us to do. I called him up one day and I said, we should do this. We should look into doing this together. And I have this studio I'm in right now that I'm still not finished doing, but it's makeshift enough for me to shoot videos in. And I had the space. I said, let's make the studio down here and we can do this. And well, I have kids, I have life, I have work. So one thing led to another. Our schedules didn't always match up on time. So I shot the welcome video like 2 years ago. And then since I wasn't able to do much, he posted the first video, not actually on this YouTube site, but on Facebook, on the channel's page on Facebook. And then he started doing his own. He said when we didn't start really doing anything, he started doing his own channel. So that's where Sean Stackhouse Reacts came from. And he had a couple content creators that helped him with that. People he knew that do some videos. You'll see them on there. And then when I came back around and I started actually getting stuff down here ready and actually able to do it, he came over and we shot some stuff for his channel and for my channel, and we started rolling. And since earlier this year, we actually started focusing some content on this. So this is really our thing, but because he does that, and we try to team up as much as possible. Sometimes some of the content you see me doing is a team up. It's just I do the commentary. So I mean, but we're definitely trying to incorporate ourselves together more on this stuff, on our streams and stuff like that, to focus on the channel, as a team. So that's kind of what the idea was originally, is to do it as a team, and we're starting to work more towards that. So if that answers your question.
Yeah. So you're I'm trying to think. I saw it like y'all have like 3,000 hours of watch time, but you're low on the sub count for some reason.
We are at 4,000 now. We are.
Oh wow! So you're just trying to get the subs now for the monetization. Okay.
Basically, and
yeah.
unfortunately, YouTube might be changing that sometime soon. So, yeah, I mean, we. I don't know. I looked one day. I have an app. A lot of us use apps to keep track of our analytics, and I looked at it, and it was around 2,000 or so, or maybe, I can't remember what it said. Actually, it said 200,000. It registered it in the long form and in minutes. And I said, I told him, I said, oh, wow, we're up to this. And he goes on, because he has access to go in and edit and do things in the channel. And he goes in there and he looks at the analytics on there and he says, no, dude, we're like 3,200, 3,200 hours. And I'm like, what? He says, well, my thing doesn't say that. And so we were both surprised that it was up that high, but I can't, I can't fathom how exactly that happened. I'm happy we're up over 200. Now it's focus on content for people to watch, to spread it out a little more. So it's not, I don't want to look like a dead channel, because the dead channels don't get subs. So it's that, and it's trying to find new and interesting things. We are working on another funny video, much like our geek one. We have a couple other ideas for them, so I think we're going to try to do that. We got some things on the horizon, and we're definitely trying to.
Yeah, no, I really like. I like talking with y'all. I've talked to y'all before. I had you on my show, and with Mary and stuff. Both y'all, offer a lot of thought. It's like how to say it. Y'all are able to say a lot more than a lot of channels that I'm like, come on, get there. And it's like, but I'm also hopeful for a lot of those people. I'm just like, I'm waiting for them to figure out if, like, they're going to realize, just pumping out mass content of the topic of the day, it doesn't work unless, like, you really have something to say. And so that's what I really appreciate when I see channels like that. And I try to always be that channel. I was going to ask you, because, like, I had no care about Charlie's Angels. I saw something said by EVS months ago. He saw a picture of woke angels with Kristen Stewart's picture of her hair from like set, and it's like, oh, that looks like it's going to be bad. So the only thing on my radar about the movie was like that image in my head. I'm like, yeah, it's just not seeing that shit. But then I saw John talk about it, so I actually looked at the trailer, and I was like, wow. And so I looked at the screenwriter, which I don't do, but the channel that had one of the channels that had the trailer made a point to write the screenplay writer and the script writer. And so I looked into this person, Evan, I think it's Spiliotopoulos, right? And this is where my question comes in for you. He, besides working on Hercules 2014 with The Rock, Brett Ratner, everything he's done has been Disney, almost exclusively like Tinkerbell type stuff, straight to DVD, and Beauty and the Beast 2017 live action. And out of nowhere, he's writing, this Charlie's Angels that EVS report on, that like Banks is like, oh, this movie's here to push, we need to believe women. It's like, oh, they're bringing this back, and I was just wondering what you think of, you got this random writer getting on a film like this as a screenwriter. You have JJ seemingly refusing Lucasfilm deal because, like, who the hell wants it?
Mm-hmm.
Now it's turning into he's got his producer now second in command seemingly for live action Lucasfilm, and he's getting entrenched supposedly with Warner Brothers. And James Gunn was never fired yet, got a deal with Warner Brothers for Suicide Squad, and I assume production of the DCEU, and still on Guardians because he was never fired. And it's like, did Warner Brothers even know about him not being fired when they hired him? There was someone else. Oh yeah, the Rotten Tomatoes and the Fandango. They have a lot of executives that are former Disney employees, and they're owned by Universal and Warner Brothers. So you think they would be competing and utilizing everything against Disney in their favor, but they didn't. It only boosted Captain Marvel by shielding it. I was just wondering, it's like they can only buy so many IPs, they can only buy up so many companies. Do you think, like, these little pieces in play that they're figuring out, well, I don't have to buy everything, I can just put my figureheads in the other companies? Do you see where
do that? Yeah, but I've even said this about Marvel and Fox when they bought them. People are like, how are they passing this off the trade commissions, and how are they getting all these properties? I said, they're not buying properties. They're buying a name, and they're taking everything from the name that they have, all the content, the intellectual property, I guess is what you'd call it, and they're tearing that away from the name, and then they're taking the name, crumpling it up, and throwing it away. We no longer have this. This does not exist anymore. Fox is gone. This is gone. This is gone. All we did was we take the names of these properties. We're going to strip everything out. See, because, like, for instance, Dark Phoenix was a Fox property, and Fox was given the rights to finish it out by Disney. But once that's done, Disney, all they wanted was the characters. They don't care about the rest of this. They're going to throw it to the curb. They did it with Star Wars. All the Star Wars EU stuff is gone in their world, and yet they pick and choose and hand choose what they want. But yes, I think that they're putting their tentacles out there. And who's to say that these people don't get paid under the table? I mean, it's highly. I mean, it's not the first time that a company has lost somebody to another place, but for some reason it seems to help the other company. There's definitely something there. I mean, I could see that. Of course, then I wouldn't be surprised to hear that in another 2-3 years that Universal and Warner Brothers goes to Disney. Because, again, they're not buying that name. They're buying all the property that they have and all the names and characters that they have. And then they're throwing them to the side because Universal, the name, doesn't mean anything to Disney. It's the characters. I think Kingdom Hearts is a good way of putting it. Kingdom Hearts was a great game, but they took characters from another thing and then incorporated it into the Disney world. And, it's like, it doesn't make sense necessarily, but it was Disney's way of manipulating another market.
Yeah, no, I never thought of that because I never was into the Disney Hearts, but that makes sense.
My kids are. I played the first one and stuff like that, but I've always noticed that. I was always like, okay, how is it they got Cloud in this? What purpose does he serve except for I just have a playable character, but I'm playing in Disney's world. I mean, some of it had Square Enix in it, but it was a Disney property, if I remember right. I think they just hired Square Enix to program it for them. But Disney has this way of, okay, well, Mary Poppins. If you've ever seen Saving Mr. Banks, which I don't know if you have, it's a story behind how Disney got a hold of Mary Poppins and all the problems that they had releasing Mary Poppins between Disney Studios or Walt Disney per se and the writer, and I can't remember her name right now, but she wrote this thing and she loved her book so much. But Walt Disney just did everything he could. He bent over backwards to try to placate her and give her what she wanted, just so he could make this movie. And he had to make concessions. She said, "I don't want this in there. I don't want this in there. I don't want this." And he did a lot of it because he's like, I don't want to deal with this. Well, after it was done, she said, "You're never going to touch my property again. You're never going to do it." What happens? She dies, and the copyright ends. Well, who comes in and sweeps up and buys it? Disney. They don't care they don't care about the parent company or the person who wrote it. The name on top of it means nothing. It's the characters and all that. They don't even care about the story necessarily. They'll write the story their own way. I mean, Cinderella, all their old films are retells of old folklore and old stories, and they wrote them their way. They wrote Pocahontas. I mean, if anybody knows the story of Pocahontas, you know that the cartoon sure as hell doesn't tell the story. They don't care. They wanted the character. They can write the story themselves. They can write history the way they want. They can write it however they want. And I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they wouldn't. I'm surprised they haven't tried to get DreamWorks yet, because DreamWorks has been a problem child for the people involved with DreamWorks for years. Steven Spielberg and a bunch of people. And it's been, it's been played with different problems from here to there, from money to all sorts of things, and it limps along. And I mean, I don't know what they're at right now or how the company's structure is now, but I'm surprised they haven't bought that and bought a lot of stuff from Steven Spielberg, especially since, George Lucas, they came in and they just said, here's the blank check, write what you want, do what you want with it. All we want, give us Star Wars. Star Wars hadn't been touched in 30, or not 30, but 20 some odd years, and they took it. They, JJ or somebody asked George Lucas, supposedly asked him to come in on and help him on 7. And a month or two into it, they said, get out of here. We don't want you. We don't want to hear about it. We don't want your opinion on your story. We're going to do it ourselves. And that's where we're at with Star Wars. They don't care about the story. They just want the characters, and they'll do what they want with the characters. And they've always done that. So yeah, I mean, I think that maybe it's a way of putting out feelers, having a little bit of control. And if you start to see problems in Universal and Warner Brothers, like financial problems or busts, you could probably say that it's Disney's meddling in the business to weaken it enough that they can swoop in and buy it out and throw it away. It's business. That's how it is. And in order to buy those properties, you have to say, well, something's going to get sold. So what they do is, like I said, they come in, buy the stuff underneath the name and say the name up here, the big name on the marquee, it's gone. We just bought the stock. We bought all the water bottles in the grocery store, but we didn't buy the grocery store. The grocery store is closed and gone. That's what I think. So yeah, Disney's a monster. They're cute and cuddly. They look cute and cuddly, but then they become the gremlin. That's what they are. So with that said, just tell everybody again who you are, what you're about, and we'll wrap this up.
Yeah, I guess first I just want to say I'm sad Sean couldn't be here. Sorry for the troubles he and his dad are going through. Hopefully he'll be on next Wednesday. I think we agreed have both y'all on for my Utter Chaos interview. Not sure who I'll get for guest panelists with me to kind of co-host with me interviewing y'all, but yeah, definitely look forward to having y'all on that. But yeah, I cover film philosophy and NFL. I'm working on a few videos right now. I'm working on like I said, I'm working on a Old Yeller comparison video with Star Wars. I'm working on a Raylo video. It's long overdue. I've been very much aware of this, but I think the amount of time I've taken to craft this has actually helped me. So I think It's not just like, oh, I hope to own the Raylos, but I really hope y'all be entertained by it, be informed, and also get a kick out of whatever literal shaking will commence from the Raylos, because they're a weird bunch. And yeah, Snowdub, he I just want to shout out Snowdub. He had a good stream idea yesterday, given a lot of people, Geeks Gamers and High Council and others saying like, yeah, I'm not streaming today, blackout for X amount of time because of the Ellen situation, which makes sense a lot in solidarity, but especially with how intertwined the top channels are. But my whole thing, I said, is like little channels and everyone else, like, if you want to do that. But if you feel like, hey, I got something to say outside of this or whatever, like, don't let this stall you. If anything, it might help people kind of be distracted for a while until we get updates, if we get them, addressing us about this whole situation, because this is a new territory a lot of us are facing, and new territory of having a huge network to like discuss this type of event or tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Snowdub had a great idea. I was on it, but I was boosting it regardless if I was on or not, of Snowdub having a stream for people just to talk in the chat or whatever, and kind of let loose, kind of address or mention stuff to ponder, but just kind of I don't know, it was like a therapeutic thing per se. And I just give him sub, even if you don't watch that stream or something, like just that sentiment he had. I was all in, not knowing I was invited for the stream and stuff. It's not a self promotion or anything. It was like, yeah. So,
No, definitely.
I know I ramble. But
I do too.
Appreciate letting me on, and this is a really good conversation.
Well, yeah, and I appreciate you coming on. And I just remembered I have to spiel. I have to spin the wheel of names. So we're gonna get this thing ready. I don't have sound hooked up tonight because my mixer board is not actually here. It's upstairs, and I have been lazy today. So hey, I'll just throw that out there. But you will see the wheel of names. So here we go. This is the wheel of names, and we take bets. Who do you think is going to be on?
No.
I'm kidding. We don't take bets. I'm going to spin this right now. We're going to see who's going to be on next week. So here we go. And the winner, or Mr. Fortunate one, is oh, look at that. So Shellback, I think you were in the chat. Let's go back real quick and look up the chat. If I can get back there. Let's go, and there I am. Okay. So Shellback, if he's here, which he may have left. Anyways, Shellback is the lucky one who will be on next week. We'll get with him. We'll get with topic, and that's how we do things here. So Angus, thank you very much. I appreciate you coming on today. Great conversation. I'm glad we picked this topic, and I look forward to being on your live stream next week. And thank you very much for coming in. Say bye to everybody.
Goodbye. Maybe you all will see some of my channel kind of properly scripting what I was talking about with you today. Some of these points I was having, and I might reference your points that accentuate them. So it might be a thing. It's in my back pocket of like ideas.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, and everybody have a great night.